Welcome back to my channel, Celeb Buzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. 40 years ago, October 20th at 6:30 is about the time that we went down. What if one of rock's most famous bands wasn't just lost to bad luck, but to a bunch of warnings, choices, and scary mistakes? The story of Lynyrd Skynyrd's last flight has long scared fans, but hidden under the big news stories is a detail so easy to prevent. It doesn't just make you mad, it hurts your heart. This isn't about famous people crashing in a big fire. It's about a choice made too late and a quiet thing everyone missed that changed everything. Before the fire, before the big news, there was a moment, one moment that could have changed music history. Was it ignored? Was it not understood? Or was it something no one wanted to face until it was way too late? Let's find out. A band almost becoming legends. By the mid-1000s, 970s, Lynyrd Skynyrd had become a huge force in Southern rock, mixing rough guitar sounds with country-style stories. Formed in Jacksonville, Florida, the band grew from small beginnings and a rough start with many name changes and local problems to become famous across America. Their main group of Ronnie Van Zant, Gary Rossington, Alan Collins, Leon Wilkeson, Billy Powell, and Artemis Pyle helped create a special high-energy sound that people loved. Their early hits like Gimme 3 Steps, Tuesday's Gone, and Simple Man got popular right away and built a fan group that went beyond the South. With each album, the band got bigger, making their place among rock legends solid. Freebird, the band's most famous song, became more than just music. It was a song everyone knew for its deep lyrics and long guitar solo. It was often the last song at their concerts. But radio stations across the country got lots of requests for the song, and people would yell, "Play Freebird" at live shows, something that still happens today. The song helped make Lynyrd Skynyrd famous everywhere, proving they weren't just a local band. They were helping shape the future of rock music. Their busy touring schedule and simple image made them easy to relate to, but their music skills earned them respect, especially when they played live. The release of Street Survivors on October 17th, 1977, only 3 days before the crash, should have been a big step forward. It had newer members like Steve Gaines, whose guitar playing was praised, and showed a band at the very top of their creative and technical skills. The album shot to the top of the charts and had great songs like What's Your Name and That Smell. The second one was supposedly inspired by Rossington's car crash while drunk. The first album cover with the band standing in front of a huge fire would soon become scarily prophetic. People inside the music business and fans felt that the band was about to become even more famous. Their mix of real stories and hot stages was starting to find a new place in rock. Yet backstage, things were getting intense. Would they have simply burned out too fast? That question would get a scarier, darker answer just days later with the crash that brought their short time of glory to a sudden end, turning these rising legends into lasting myths. Just as the band reached their peak, a missed decision was already steering them toward disaster. A curse of the Convair 240. The Convair 240 that carried Lynyrd Skynyrd to their doom was already an old aircraft way past its best years. Made in 1948, the plane had flown over 29,000 hours by the time it was rented for the band's tour in 1977. While this model was once a normal choice for short flights, it was mostly retired by the late 1960s for newer and safer jets. The specific plane Skynyrd rented was not well taken care of and didn't have the backup safety systems expected even back then. What made things worse was that this plane had a questionable history and had been sold many times, often being used for jobs far from safe passenger service. What makes the story more disturbing is that another famous rock band had already looked at and said no to this same plane just months before. Aerosmith's management team thought about renting the Convair 240 for their 1977 tour, but backed out right after checking both the plane and its crew. According to reports, the pilots were seen drinking Jack Daniels during the check, a huge red flag. Aerosmith's team said it was unsafe and clearly warned against using the plane. That choice, looking back, might have saved their lives. The fact that this incident was known in music business circles raises questions. Did Lynyrd Skynyrd's management ignore those warnings, or did they simply not know about the plane's bad reputation? Despite known worries, the band decided to go ahead with using the Convair 204 for their tour. Convenience played a big role. The plane let the band avoid long hours on the road and meet a tough tour schedule. For Ronnie Van Zant and others, canceling or moving shows was not an option. They didn't want to let their Southern fans down. Even after clear signs of engine trouble during a flight from Lakeland to Greenville, worries raised by crew and band members were ignored. Cassie Gaines, who had already said she was scared of flying, reportedly thought about riding in the band's equipment truck instead of getting on the plane again. Yet, she and others were talked into getting back on the plane. The sad irony is how close they were to giving up the plane. Talks were already happening about switching to a Learjet for the rest of the tour, but that plan never happened in time. Instead, the band got on one final flight on a plane that had already shown signs it wasn't safe to fly, a choice that would cost 6 lives and change rock history forever. Scary warnings and dark words. One of the creepiest and most talked about parts of the Lynyrd Skynyrd tragedy is the sense of doom that surrounded lead singer Ronnie Van Zant in the months before the crash. Van Zant reportedly told many people, including his family, bandmates, and even reporters, that he believed he wouldn't live to see 30. His father remembered Ronnie saying, "Daddy, I'll never be 30 years old," a statement he said so often that it stopped sounding like drama and started to feel like he really believed it. Artemis Pyle also remembered a talk in Tokyo where Ronnie told him, "I'm going out with my boots on." Sadly, his prediction would come true. Van Zant died in the plane crash at just 29 years old, less than 3 months before his 30th birthday. Cassie Gaines, one of the Honkettes and sister of guitarist Steve Gaines, also had a deep fear about flying on the Convair 240. Her fear wasn't just worry, it was so strong that she preferred to ride with the band's equipment in a cramped truck rather than get on the plane again. After seeing sparks from the right engine on an earlier flight, she had every reason to be scared. Yet despite fighting it, she was talked into getting on the plane for the flight to Baton Rouge. The one who convinced her was Van Zant himself, who famously reassured her with the chilling line, "If it's your time to go, it's your time to go." Looking back, that moment has become a symbol of the doom that seemed to surround the band at that time. Such scary statements didn't just stand alone. Ronnie Van Zant made peace with dying young in other talks too. His wife Judy would later admit that when she heard about the crash, she already knew he wouldn't survive. "He told me so many times that I knew he really meant what he was saying." She said there's no clear explanation for why Van Zant felt so strongly about his faith. Was it intuition, fatalism beaten into him with a hard living lifestyle, or just coincidence? Whatever the case, constant remarks about dying young make this already tragic event even more haunting. Looking back, such predictions are not easy to accept. The prediction of scary signs backed by fears that were brushed aside earlier, along with the final words that seem almost written by fate, brings much discomfort. Did Van Zant truly believe that his end was near, or do those moments just seem more dramatic because of what happened next? Either way, those memories, with all their fame from Skynyrd lore, make the mystery and sadness of October 20th, 1977 even stronger. Disaster in the making. When the Lynyrd Skynyrd Convair 204 went down on October 20th, 1977, first reactions assumed a terrible mechanical failure, but the official investigation shows something far more preventable and disturbing. According to the final report from the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, the crash was not caused by a structural failure or engine explosion. Instead, the plane simply ran out of fuel. This revelation stunned fans and experts alike. With 26 people on board, the pilots failed to correctly watch fuel levels or detect the unusually high fuel use from the right engine, which had shown signs of problems days earlier. The tragedy wasn't the result of chance, it was a failure in planning and watching. Investigators found that the crew was flying with the engines set to auto-rich mixture. This setting uses more fuel and is typically used only during takeoff or climb, not during cruise. The standard cruising procedure would have been to switch to the auto lean setting, which saves fuel. This mistake, combined with bad fuel management and the crew's failure to properly check the fuel supply, led directly to the disaster. Adding to the frustration, the pilots reportedly misjudged the amount of fuel they had left during flight, leaving them unprepared when the right engine failed first, followed shortly by the left. They tried to go to a nearby airport in Mississippi, but the plane didn't have enough fuel left to make the emergency landing. One particularly bad moment came when the flight crew tried to transfer fuel between tanks to balance the difference between engines. Instead, they accidentally dumped the remaining fuel into the air. In doing so, they got rid of any remaining chance of keeping the plane in the air. The plane's engines quit altogether, forcing the band and crew into a powerless fall over Mississippi's swampland. For a group that had endured the chaotic grind of life on the road, their fate was sealed not by rock and roll excess, but by a preventable series of mistakes inside the cockpit. This was not just an accident, it was an avoidable failure in basic aviation rules. Making matters worse, the band had reportedly already talked about replacing the Convair 204 with a Learjet. After seeing the earlier engine troubles, they knew the plane was unreliable. So why didn't they switch immediately? Was it a matter of cost, scheduling pressure, or misplaced trust in the crew's ability to manage? No clear answers came out, only the grim irony that their escape plan came one flight too late. The cause of the crash, as confirmed by investigators, was not a mystery. It was human error. The final moments on board. As the Convair 240 began its final descent on the evening of October 20th, 1977, most of the 26 people on board remained unaware of the full scope of the danger. The first part of the flight from Greenville, South Carolina had gone smoothly. Passengers were relaxed. Some played cards, others rested. Ronnie Van Zant, exhausted from performing the night before, was reportedly asleep on the floor with a pillow. There was no panic yet. But everything changed when drummer Artemis Pyle decided to visit the cockpit and was immediately told to return to his seat and fasten his seatbelt. The urgency in the pilot's voice marked the first clear sign that something was wrong. It didn't take long for that unease to spread. Once passengers were made aware that the plane had run out of fuel and both engines had failed, a chilling calm took over. Survivors later recalled that no one screamed or broke into chaos. Instead, most closed their eyes, clutched their seats, or held each other in silence. Billy Powell described it as a moment of collective prayer. These last 10 minutes were filled with dread and resignation as the plane dropped lower, the lights inside flickering. Some tried to brace themselves, while others simply hoped for a miracle. During the final descent of the aircraft into a thickly wooded area near Gillsburg, Mississippi, the first hit with treetops was described as 1,000 baseball bats slamming against the fuselage. The plane tore through trees for 1,000 feet, coming apart piece by piece. Guitarist Gary Rossington would remember this sound later. It was deafening and violent. The cockpit came loose from the rest of the plane and crashed into a tree, killing both pilots instantly. The wings were torn off and the tail section fell apart. Those seated in the rear had a slightly better chance of surviving, but no one escaped without serious injury. The impact was not gentle. The forest swallowed most of the plane, churning it into a swampy, pine-covered clearing and leaving a trail of debris and injured bodies across the forest floor. Those who died in the crash were Van Zant, Steve Gaines, Cassie Gaines, and several others, either during the moment of impact or shortly after. Survivors like Powell, Rossington, and Pyle were thrown from the wreckage or pinned under debris. In seconds, this journey meant to continue a triumphant tour ended in catastrophic silence.